Good morning, everybody. Rob here on the Sportster 72, and welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday. Today I'm going to tell you about the time I got sued by the city for getting shot on duty. That's right, you heard me. The city sued me because I got shot on duty. Now, it's a very confusing story. But what happened is, after I got released from the hospital after being shot, and for those of you who are wondering what is that all about, you need to go back and watch my earlier video, the anniversary of my death, to find out that story. So I got released from the hospital, and the city had me transferred to the care of the city contract doctors. And I'm sitting at home recuperating the first week out of the hospital. I get a phone call from the chief of police. He wants to have a lawyer friend of his come by and talk to me about filing a lawsuit to see if we can get the fireman's rule overturned. And for those of you who may not know, the fireman's rule is basically a rule of law that states that firemen and policemen cannot sue the property owners at the scenes wherever they get injured, because getting injured is expected to be part of the job. So we were gonna try and fight that and get that changed, which that has now been changed, not because of my case, but because of a different case later on down the line. So anyways, I go ahead and sign up with the lawyer and say, sure, you know, let's try and get that law changed. Because I thought that was a bunch of bullshit. Everybody else gets to sue the people that cause injury to them out of their negligence. Why shouldn't firemen and policemen be able to do the same? So, hello, Mr. BPD. The lawyer had contacted the city and asked them to join us in the lawsuit, along with all the other people who were suing Spencer for the shooting and the injuries and the deaths. And the city refused to do it. They didn't want any part of it. They don't want to be held liable for any lawyer's fees or anything like that, I guess. I don't know. Didn't want to. Anyways, whatever the reason was, they didn't want any part of it. And they even sent my lawyer a letter stating so, which would become very important later down the line. So anyways, they have the court hearings going on, and this is all going on and on and on, and there's probably about almost a year down the road, and all the rest of the people involved in the lawsuit just wanted it over with, and so did the insurance company. My lawyer was the only one who wanted to keep fighting it to try and get that fireman's rule overturned. And it didn't look like that was going to happen, so we went ahead and settled along with everybody else. Well, the minute the case got settled, the city contacts me, and they want all that money from the settlement, which wasn't really all that much. Truthfully, it was nothing really. It wasn't even a whole year's salary. Maybe about a third of a year's salary. But anyways, they wanted all the money, and told them to contact my lawyer. My lawyer told them, no, you were offered a chance to join in at the beginning and you didn't want any part of it. We're not giving you any of the money. So the city turns right around, takes away all my sick leave, takes away all my accrued vacation time, cuts off my medical benefits, and sends me a bill for all of the hospitalization and doctor's visits and everything in connection with being shot. Well, I go to my lawyer and he said, well, he don't handle that stuff. You got to contact the POA, which is the Police Officers Association, basically our union. And since I was a member of that, I would get free legal representation. So I go to them, have a big meeting with their board, and they couldn't believe what I was telling them, because I guess apparently there's some rule or law against the police chief contacting officers at home and setting them up with personal attorneys for lawsuits. I didn't know that. Chief should have known it. And then so they gave me a POA lawyer to represent me, to get back my sick leave and my vacation time, get my medical benefits reinstated, and quash the bill that the city had sent me for the hospital surgery and for the gunshot wound and everything, and they were also garnishing my wages, so I had to give them wages back. And so he was able to do that pretty fast. So then the city turned around and filed a lawsuit against me to try and recuperate all the money from the personal injury case. So he represented me in that. That took a little longer to settle, but eventually it worked out in my favor, and the city's lawsuit was thrown out. And I had eventually got back all my sick leave, all my vacation time, got my medical coverage back, got the bill for the hospitalization for the gunshot thrown out. Oh, and I also found out that they were supposed to file a workers' comp claim with the state that they had never done. So we got that filed. And I was having problems because the bullet was lodged against my spine, just below the 5th thoracic vertebrae. And at times when I was out on patrol wearing my bulletproof vest, if I leaned back in the patrol car, the vest would push the slug into my spine, into the spinal cord, and cause me to be paralyzed from the waist down. So I had to start driving around with a lumbar pillar behind me to keep from leaning back against the seat. I had been trying to get the city to send me to a specialist and see about getting the bullet removed, get rid of that problem, but they wouldn't. So we were in the process, my attorney was in the process of fighting him in court to try and get me to go see a specialist so I could get the bullet removed. Well, one night I'm out on patrol, and this guy blows a red, or not a red light, he blows a stop sign right in front of me. So I light him up with the overhead lights, pull him over, open the door, stick my left leg out the door, and start to get out of the car, and I moved wrong or something. Something went wrong, and that slug moved and jammed right into my spinal cord and paralyzed me from the waist down. There I was, I couldn't move. Now normally when that happened, I could fiddle myself around and get it to move out of the way and regain the use of my legs again. But in this case, everything I tried, nothing was working. So there I was, stuck, paralyzed, halfway in and halfway out of the car for what seemed like an eternity. Well, the guy I had pulled over for running the stop sign, he gets out and starts walking back to the patrol car. So I yell out to him, hey, never mind, it's your lucky day. I just got a radio call I have to go on, so you're not getting a ticket. So take off. Just don't run any more stop signs. So he says thanks, and smiles, jumps back in his car and takes off. And there I am, stuck on the roadside. I was finally able to get a hand over far enough to get my radio, call for the supervisor. Supervisor shows up. I explained to him what's going on. And at the time, nobody in the department knew that the bullet was still in my spine. They thought it had been removed because it wasn't something I talked about. So, you know, he was a little bit leery about everything that was going on. He wanted to call the paramedics in and the fire department in and have me extricated from the patrol car and taken in. Well, that would have been embarrassing as hell for me. And I talked him into just getting another patrol officer to come out over and with the help of the two of them, get me out of my patrol car, into his car, and take me over to the emergency room. So they were able to get me out of the car and into his car and took me over to the emergency room, and he went in and got a gurney and brought it out. And the ER attendants came out and they got me on the gurney and took me into the hospital. And I ended up spending a week in the hospital in traction, paralyzed from the waist down, not knowing if I was ever going to regain the use of my legs again, because normally, you know, I was able to get it to come work again, but not this time. So in the meantime, my doctor, or my lawyer, is fighting with the city to get the doctors to be allowed to do the surgery to remove the bullet. The doctors are telling me I got a 50-50 chance of ending up paralyzed for life if they do the surgery. And at that point, it didn't really matter because I wasn't walking out of that hospital anyways. So we finally got an emergency order through the courts to allow the doctors to do the surgery and remove the bullet. Luckily, they did a really good job, and within a couple of days, I was able to get back up on my feet. Within a week, I was back home, walking around. Within a couple of weeks, I was back to light duty. And within a couple of months, I had convinced the city contract doctor to okay me for full active duty and send me back to work. And all this time, they were still trying to settle the workers' comp claim for the original gunshot injury. Now they were trying to add this onto it. The city decided in their wisdom it would be cheaper for them just to retire me. So they were trying to force me into retirement. I had my lawyer fighting to keep me a job. Thankfully, their stupid city contract doctor had signed off and okayed me good enough to go back to full active duty. So that quashed their whole plans on forcing me into retirement. And I was able to go back to work. So that was my first experience with being paralyzed from the waist down, possibly facing a life in a wheelchair, being threatened with forced disability retirement, and having to hire a lawyer to protect myself against the city, who you would think you wouldn't have to do. But that's the way it goes. So you would think that firemen, policemen, if they get injured on the job, shouldn't have anything to worry about, right? Wrong. You'd be surprised the crap they have to go through and the way they get screwed over by the city. They end up having to hire lawyers to protect themselves. The city will come in and they'll take away your sick leave, your vacation time. They'll send you the bill for the medical stuff. They won't file the paperwork with the state for the workers' comp. They basically don't do a damn thing they're supposed to do. All they want to do is send you to their city contract doctor, who will shoot you up full of pain medication, give you a prescription for pain pills, and send you right back to work. And that's exactly what they did to me. And I was forced to get an attorney and countersue the city. They say you can't sue the city? Well, bullshit, you can. And I won. course, they were never happy about it, but that's the way it goes. Oh, that was the other thing too. When I was back on patrol and that city contract doctor had prescribed all those pain pills for me to take. Well, if I would have been taking the pain pills and driving a patrol car, they could have come out and arrested me for driving under the influence of pain medication, which they did try to do. But I, being smarter than them, didn't take the goddamn pain pills when I was at work. I suffered through the pain and waited till I got home to take my pain pills. So, if any of you are out there thinking about going to work for the government, you might want to give it a second chance or a second thought.